This is the second part on the video centering around Salat and how he, and by extent the Kushan/Bakiraka, help influence the world building of Berserk throughout the series. This video in particular will be covering the Conviction arc specifically. If you haven't watched part 1, then I please urge you to before continuing this video. We first see the Kushan army at the end of the Revelations episode, and an Eastern influence is immediately seen through the symbology and the general designs of the army. We, as a reader, can put 2 and 2 together and associate this with Salat and the Bakiraka we saw previously. A clever piece of dialogue from the child, "The mountains are moving," also reflects of how powerful the Kushan forces are, and this also sets up that they will be a force to be reckoned with, at least for normal human armies to deal with in later arcs. The connection to Salat specifically comes from the Kushan Scouts episode, with the reveal of the Kushan Scouts being told almost entirely visually. Their clothing and general design is like what the reader has already experienced with Salat in the Golden Age, so we as the reader make that association that Salat and these new Kushan Scouts must have some sort of connection. This is confirmed in later panels when the Kushan Scouts are using the same daggers and chakrams that Salat used in the Golden Age. Pair this with the designs of these scouts being vastly different to the army we saw previously, so that the reader then can associate that these Kushan scouts must be more associated with Salat than the general Kushan army we saw previously in Conviction. Guts even comments on the Kushan scouts' appearance, thinking, "Who were those guys? They look like people I've seen before," which is a neat little nod to his previous conflict with Salat, and makes our protagonist aware of a greater presence of the Bakiraka and by extension the Kushan, with the experience that he has met one previously, and this comes into play massively in later arcs. Salat makes his grand return at the end of this chapter through his dialogue exchanges with the newly revealed Tapasa. The Tapasa have an immediate striking design, and whilst they all share the same visual design, the various ruins on their forehead separating them and the stark contrast of the muscular build compared to the lean physique we've seen of the other Bakiraka and Kushan scouts is a good visual cue to show the reader that they fulfill the bodyguard role without outright stating it through exposition. Back to Salat. We as readers can tell that he has changed. We get some dialogue of the duty of the Bakiraka, where Salat claims that they are to scout. This is a big departure from his previous representation as a brash warrior who thought he couldn't be defeated. We knew that the Bakiraka were assassins for hire from the Golden Age, so Salat's previous comments that they are to scout lines up with this. But for Salat to take his duty more seriously and more maturely, rather than for the pursuit of pure strength, shows immediate character growth in just a small exchange. This is also demonstrated where Salat says, "There isn't a need for further sacrifices." Salat has improved as a leader of the Bakiraka through his fight with Guts. It grounded him on a level where he was willing to accept that he has a lot to learn, as well as to grow more into his role, with a 2+ year time skip since Golden Age makes this a realistic growth for Salat without it seeming jarring or unrealistic. This shows a connection of both the world building and character development of Berserk. Just like how Guts, and by extension we as a reader, were influenced and maybe enthralled by the strange new world of the Bakiraka and Kushan through Salat's introduction of the Golden Age and how this affects the story, Salat was also influenced by the world outside of the Kushan, and how this developed his maturity and character. This is also seen in Salat taking his new mission of searching for the Oracle, and this setup helps establish how importantly Salat will take this mission later on in the story. Fast forward to the end of Conviction. Just as Guts and the rest of the group feel the worst is past, the sudden spears surrounding them and the Bakiraka being shrouded by fog, until a spread shot of them appears, helps reinforce some key points. First, it mirrors their appearance in the beginning of Conviction. They appear without fanfare or build-up, which relates to their role as assassins for hire. It is their job to be sneaky. Miura demonstrating just how easily and quickly the Bakiraka can sneak up on unsuspecting groups. Even Guts didn't notice until the last moment, shows such talent without the need to delve deeply into their history with exposition. The second point is that whilst the situations are similar involving the Baki Raka back from the Kushan Scouts episode, so from the beginning and the end of Conviction, the contexts are very different. When we first see the Kushan Scouts, it was more of an action set piece, demonstrating Guts' new equipment and reforged Dragon Slayer, and it establishes a heroic moment almost for Guts, to show off his new gear to slay some new foes. But now, although the situation is similar, the stakes have risen due to the group fighting all night and they are all tired. Guts now is beginning to fulfill his role as protector, rather than fighting solo without any stakes of his own life. That's what I love about the Baki Raka's inclusion in Berserk. They can be organically inserted into scenarios in which the stakes can entirely change on a whim, based on their roles as assassins. Can Guts easily wipe them out? Of course he can, but for them to sneak out of nowhere in any scenario that the story calls for, adds for some interesting new flavour for the story of Berserk to go, depending on the context. It could either be a hardcore action scene, or it could be one where the stakes have risen even higher. We see Salat refer back to his mission, assuming that Guts, or someone in Guts' group, is the oracle that they seek, due to them being the only survivors of the onslaught which happened the previous night. Salat demonstrates his growth once again by ordering his troops to seize everyone there, even if they do suffer some injuries. This is not the same man as we saw in the Golden Age. He was headstrong and assumed that all soldiers in this foreign land lack training. He demonstrates discipline and leadership for taking this mission so seriously. If this was Salat, back as he was in Golden Age, he probably would have wanted to take Guts and his whole group on his own to demonstrate his strength. Miura is an extremely effective visual storyteller. That much is obvious. However, Miura usually portrays the feelings of his characters through their eyes. This is no different with Salat. When Griffith is reborn, Salat looks on with the rest of the cast, with a look of bewilderment, but more importantly, fear. If Salat's fight with Guts has humbled him and grounded him, then witnessing the rebirth of Griffith begins to change his worldview completely. Salat, who once thought he was one of the great warriors in the world, but couldn't even beat Guts, and learnt that there are those stronger than him, is now greeted with Griffith, and from one look, he knows deep down he cannot fulfill his mission of even laying a finger on this man, and he is terrified about that. This is confirmed in the panel where Salat is addressing his men to capture Griffith. This is also where the reader learns that the reinstatement of the Baki Raka clans rides on fulfilling this mission. But Salat knows deep down that this cannot be done, as when he is barking the orders to his men, Miura ensures to show sweat beads dropping down Salat's face. While Salat experienced the same amazement of seeing Griffith's rebirth, to show a contrast of Guts' rage after the fact, Salat instead is showing pure fear. Salat gathers that Griffith isn't even human, and thus begins his journey of seeking answers of that he doesn't understand, which becomes a core theme for the character from this point on. If the Golden Age taught Salat that he's not the strongest warrior, and that training and leadership is what will improve him as a person, then this experience taught him of how much he doesn't know about the world, and how seeking the truth of what one doesn't understand is important. How could Salat even hope to reinstate his clan into society if he's tasked with capturing something he doesn't even comprehend as human? Just looking at Griffith chilled him to his core, and I believe Salat has realised at this point how much he doesn't know about the true nature of his mission he has been given, which for the story going forward is an important lesson that Salat keeps reminding himself to learn the truth of. Even with the minor appearances in Conviction, Salat, the Baki Raka / Kushan, and the world building they represent going forward shows the skill of Miura's work with both visual elements and the writing he attributed to Salat and the Kushan going forward, and this indeed does play a huge role for the next arc. Originally, this video was going to be 2 parts, but the scope has expanded massively since then, so I think I will leave the next 2 arcs to be their own videos. Join me next time where I will discuss the Kushan's expanded role and how Salat slots into the wider picture of all this. Thanks for watching.